I have effectively completed the Sailing Alpha. That means that I've done all the tasks that they put in the guide. I've also green logged the captain's log. I've spent a lot of time on Barracuda Trials. I've play tested a bunch of things. I'm ready to give my thoughts on this Alpha and the skill as a whole. Movement is extremely important for sailing success. If the movement doesn't feel good and it doesn't feel old school, people aren't going to want to train the skill. People aren't going to want to do Barracuda Trials. And this Alpha, I can say that they've done a fantastic job with the movement in sailing. It is very, very old school feeling, but also like they've added some unique technology and differences compared to like land movement that have really paid off. The key differences are the tile system and the directions you can move. So for the tiles, it doesn't feel like there are really tiles on water, or if there are tiles on water, there's like a lot more of them, if that makes sense. You can notice this by the amount like a boat can like move relative to another boat. Like you can get really close to a boat, you can get like a little farther from a boat, a little bit further from that. Like there's a lot of minute differences you can have. On land, it's super clear when one person's on one tile and another person's on another tile. In the water, it's not really as clear. So there's definitely a lot more, tiles, so to speak, in the water. And then the directions, when you're on land, if you count the amount of tiles around you, there's 8 directions you can shoot yourself off into, right? On the water, there's 16 headings you can set. That means there's twice as many directions you can set yourself to. So the combination of the increased tiles, as well as the fact that you can go 16 different directions, has created an extremely fluid movement system, which we're not used to seeing in old school, but it feels really good and it seems to fit the game. It creates some differences, right, compared to land, and we're going to talk about that mostly with Barracuda Trials, but overall, I think they did a fantastic job. I think the side menu could use some improvements. I think on the boat, sometimes clicking the sails and whatnot is a little bit annoying because of the hitboxes, but otherwise, kudos to them. This was very, very important. Now, is boat size going to be something that's going to be a bit of a problem in the future? Maybe. I had a hunch that smaller boats might be better for movement, and people might be using the raft in a lot of cases. Like here, I needed to chart something by Shanty Pass, so I took the raft to get through the rock. The larger boats couldn't get through, and keep in mind, we're supposed to get one size larger than the ones we got in the beta as well. So that's something that I'm a little bit worried about. I went to go try the raft out at Barracuda Trials though, and for whatever reason, I just couldn't get the same speed as the other boat, so it feels like they might balance it so you're using the appropriate boat size for Barracuda Trials, because that's what I was most concerned about. We talk about the skill a lot and the methods and all that, but I really think that sailing is also going to have a positive impact on the community. Now, the alpha obviously has a lot of people acting like pirates. The release will be like that, and over time, efficiency takes over, definitely. But something unique happened, and I actually think it's going to become a bit of a staple for sailing. I was hanging out by Pandemonium and I saw a couple boats beside each other, kind of in the dock. I thought it was really funny, so I decided to reverse park beside them. And when I did that, people started to see this line forming and more people started to reverse park in. And we started up with this boat standing party, which honestly somebody posted on Reddit and it actually got a lot of upvotes, and it was really cool to see. It made me feel like a child again, hanging out with these people. And you can still alcohol doing this, you can fletch, so there's that aspect too. I really think it could become a new version of bank standing. Look at all, you could tell who's good at driving and who is just horrible. Look at this guy trying to reverse it. What is he doing? What are you doing, brother? Get this guy away from a car, man. What is he doing? I can't. What the? I'm dying. I think he gave up. Salvaging is your AFK method where you can go out and sea, salvage some shipwrecks, come back, use a salvaging station, and get some loot. It's what you expect, AFK activity. I like the social aspect of it, that other boats are around you, that you can chill. There's some also crazy methods. People have already come out with like 3 ticking and whatnot, which I think is really cool for skillers. You can drive by salvage and get a couple salvage as you're going by a location, which is also kind of interesting. But overall, you know, it's what you expect. At first, when I got the loot, I wasn't super impressed, but when I got to level 25 and I did the 25 shipwrecks, the loot got a lot better. So I'm like, okay, as I get higher and higher levels, you know, 80, it's probably going to be fairly rewarding. So I really, really like that. And having really good hooks is going to be really fun too. I also think there's an interesting kind of solve for something I've seen for very, very wealthy players. So I noticed that salvaging, you know, early game, it's probably just better to destroy your salvage as opposed to like, you know, going back to the docks, because you're going to lose a lot of XP doing that and you're not going to gain a ton of money. As you get higher levels, you know, you're probably going to have more incentive to go back to the dock, but I think a lot of players might just drop their salvage. However, we do have a cargo hold and you can put your salvage inside of it. And I'm assuming this cargo hold can be improved at later levels. If they make it so that you can put a lot of salvage in there before going back to the dock, that's actually going to be a solve where you might not have people destroying or dropping their salvage as much. They might actually be incentivized to make that trip once in a while, right? As opposed to having to make that trip very often. I think it just feels different than like woodcutting, filling up your inventory and then going back. Filling up your boat just sounds epic. Port tasks, I am a very big fan of, just conceptually. In the alpha, I know there is definitely like, we're only getting the early game version of this, so a lot of people really didn't enjoy taking their crates and moving it to the boat when you got to like 2 or 3 and you got to do 2 or 3 trips. But according to Modelena, this is the early game, right? They want to have like a little bit of friction in the early game. Eventually, you're going to have crew be able to do that for you, or a crane is going to automatically load and unload your boat. So that's going to make port tasks a lot more fun when you start to get those upgrades. There were a couple weird tasks where you had to like go to another location to get the cargo and then come back. That basically means you require an extra trip. I didn't like those ones. I'm guessing you're going to get more XP obviously, but just conceptually, I like the idea of, you know, accepting a task and taking cargo right away to somewhere else as opposed to making an extra trip. I guess that's more of like a personal preference, but I'd prefer those ones really didn't exist. It's really hard to know exactly what port tasks are going to be in the future. As you get higher level, as you get more upgrades, what other types of tasks are there too, right? We obviously see they teased us with some bounty tasks, and, you know, there could be even more types of tasks where you got to do some like, you know, fishing based tasks, for example. So it'll be interesting to see there. I also think this is a really good opportunity to make PvP interesting, like way down the line. I don't think PvP is going to launch on release. I don't think it's high priority, but eventually, if it's ever in, you know, a place to launch, you could have some interesting port tasks where you have to go across dangerous waters, and it can be very, very lucrative, like a lot of money, but obviously you're risking that money. I like the idea of that. I think they could do similar with salvaging, right? Like have like really, really good money salvaging locations in the wilderness waters. Also during the alpha, I noticed you could take 2 tasks at one time, and in the future, it looks like you can take up to 5. This is kind of interesting because you can kind of plan your route out, and this will probably give you the best like XP rates and gold overall, but this might be seen as tedious by some people to have to take multiple tasks at once. Charting the sea isn't like a traditional training method. It's not like you're going to gain XP per hour and do it continuously. It's one-time events where you get a chunk of XP and you move on to the next type of event. It's sort of like a collection log, exploration log, something like that. And at least in the alpha, it wasn't super impressive for me. I like the idea of exploring, and I actually do like collection logs, but just what I was doing, I didn't find super interesting. Clicking on the things in charting, I kind of just clicked and move on, clicked and move on. It just felt like trivial tasks. On top of that, some of the types of charting you do, I really didn't like. I didn't like the troll weather report one. That was difficult. I just didn't understand how to do it. I also didn't like the spyglass ones. The spyglass I thought could be interesting if they show you, you know, cool Easter eggs and whatnot, but it's kind of just a cutscene of what's in front of you. It took time, and I didn't enjoy that time. So really, I would just do drive-by chartings. Now, I don't know how they could make it better. I think better and more clever Easter eggs would be interesting. I think maybe if it was like a collection log where like the more that you log, maybe you get some like cosmetic sales and stuff like that. That could be like at least an incentive. But in my opinion, this is probably the weakest aspect of the sailing alpha in terms of like training methods. You're also going to gain XP by trimming your sails. There's a wind catcher that gives you XP. I'd assume that maybe in the future, depending on the facilities on your boat, interacting with them will give you XP. So just like obviously core sailing things will give you sailing XP. Barracuda Trials is your high intensity of training method where you can get the most XP, especially if you're good at it. And there's so much skill expression with this that we'll get into. There's a lot that I like about this, and there's a few things I hope that they would look into or tweak. First thing I love, like the one in the alpha, it's called like the temper tantrum or something like that. And it takes place by Temperos. I love that it fits in the world. Like it makes sense that there's a storm in that area by Temperos because Temperos is causing a storm. I also love that if you did this on like the Temperos world or whatever, you're gonna see a bunch of people doing Temperos. That's something we didn't see in the sailing alpha, right? Like everybody's out in the water. In the future, we're gonna see people on the land and the water at the same time. If there's anywhere where movement is gonna be very important, it's gonna be at the Barracuda Trials, and it's gonna be so skill-based, probably more skill-based than any other movement that we have in the game. There's so much like variance, and not just because of the course. Even if the course was like identical every time, there's so many differences, and it has to go back to what I was talking about earlier with movement. You have this kind of weird tile system where your boat can be in way more different places than your person can be on like a given tile. You have the 16 directions that you have to work with. On top of that, like your turning, turns are not like instant, right? So you have to factor that in. And then your speed is variable. Unlike on land, you've got walk speed and then run speed, which is double. This you have like your standard speed, then you've got your trimming the sail speed, then you've got like these rapid speeding you up, and it seems like if you like chain things, you go even faster. There were moments during this run where I was going like super fast, and it actually felt so good. So this is going to be unique, and it's going to be very skill-based, and I think those like world record times are not going to be like these like static times. Like the theoretical world record for Barracuda Trials is going to be much harder to get because being tick perfect is going to be much harder with all these increased variables. There was one aspect of this Barracuda trial that was very, very frustrating, and it had to do with the crates. When you miss a crate, it is like destroys your run. Unlike on land where you can like make up for some small mistake by just like losing a few ticks, because of this being so like momentum based and your ship having to like do these wide turns, like if you miss a crate, you lose so much time, like 30 seconds plus trying to get this crate back. You're not going to make the time at the high ranks. You might as well reset, which means you're losing a lot of XP. Now, I did get better over time at like not missing crates, but still it was kind of frustrating. And maybe there's a few fixes for this. Like I think the most obvious fix would make like the crate grabbing radius like a little bit larger, perhaps like the magnet zone, because sometimes I felt like I was close and it didn't grab it, and other times it felt like the crate grabbed from a further distance than the one I just missed. Overall though, the trial was really fun and I am a fan of it. Once I got over kind of the learning curve, it became more and more fun, more and more rewarding. I'm hoping, like, this is only the first course, right? Level 30. I'm hoping that the future ones are going to be even more fun. I really hope they continue to tie it into the world. Temperos is like a very obvious example, but I'm hoping they come up with other great examples like that. And I hope they do some cosmetic flexes with some of the faster times, because not everybody's going to be able to get that time. Sailing is going to also introduce a lot of new islands to the game, and all these islands are going to have their own kind of unique identity. Some of them might be a little bit more flavor or Easter eggs, others might actually have like meta-defining aspects to them. There's a few interesting ones that we got during the beta. The most interesting one was the one that had sort of a Slayer cave with a lot of mobs. It's endless possibilities of what could be on these islands in the future. Now, sailing to the islands, you're not going to want to sail to them all the time, like if you're doing Slayer, for example. So I'm sure some of them will have, teleport methods you unlock at a certain point when you explore the island, for example. But I am a fan of some of these islands being like, you always want to sail to them. Like, there's no teleports to get to them. And I think if the island is rewarding enough, it can work. So I'm hoping those will also exist. Because, yeah, going out in your boat on an expedition to an island to gain like a lot of money is a cool thematic thing. I believe Modelina mentioned that like they're just getting into islands now in development. This isn't going to be something that I really want them to share too much, because it's not really too much about the fundamental sailing aspect. It's more like future expansion, exploration. So I'm hoping on release we'll get that opportunity. I'm also hoping that these islands, you know, the really good ones, are going to be level locked as well, because it's going to reward you for having that sailing level. I'm going to glaze a little bit here, but this alpha has honestly really showed me that this team can deliver a skill that is very fun and fits into old school. I had a blast doing this, and everything they're showing us is the fundamentals only, right? Like your basic movement, basic training. There's so much more we still have to see. We have to see the crew system, we have to see the combat system. Both those weren't really ready to show, but I expect we'll see those in the next round of playtesting or sometime soon. So that's going to be fun to dig into. But outside of that, they're also not going to show us anything past the early game, right? Maybe they'll get us a little bit few extra levels, but a lot of that's going to be saved for release. And that means a lot of the upgrades, a lot of the new items, the resources, the new islands, the trials, all that's going to be on release. And based on what I'm seeing here in the fundamentals, it shows me they can deliver. So did you play around the alpha? What do you think?